Welcome to What Resonates. This podcast is about tuning into energy, intuition, and what feels true for you. Each conversation invites you to notice what sparks curiosity and feels aligned, opening a wider field of possibility for yourself and for humanity. Keep tuning in and follow What Resonates. If you've been wanting to strengthen your intuition and trust your inner knowing, and build a clear connection with your higher self, I invite you to join the interest list for the next round of Channel Your Divine Self. This is my live course for people who want to explore channeling in a grounded, sovereign, and supported way. We're over giving our power away. Now let's develop discernment, boundaries, trust, and the ability to recognize what truly resonates for you. The next round opens late summer or early fall, and the interest list is the best place to be notified when doors reopen. You'll find the link in the description. I hope to meet you there. Welcome to What Resonates. I'm Andrea Kennedy, and I have with me today Dr. Michael Breus. He's a clinical psychologist and sleep specialist, and he's widely known as the sleep doctor. His work has helped make the science of sleep practical and understandable for people who just want to feel and function better. He's a fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and one of only 168 psychologists in the world with his level of credentials in sleep medicine. He's the best-selling author of several books, including The Power of When and Sleep, Drink, Breathe. He's been featured across television, mainstream media, and public education. And today we're going to explore sleep not just as rest, but as a foundation for healing, emotional processing, aging well, and living more aligned with the rhythm of our bodies. Welcome to the show, Dr. Breus. I'm super excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right, well, let's get into it. So, Dr. Breus, we all sleep, right? We can't escape
Hopefully.
that. Yeah, right. Yeah. But I'm wondering, I think we all sleep, but do we really understand all that sleep does for us? I bet we don't. And you
No.
have done this so many years, seen so many patients one-on-one. What do you wish people understood most about how sleep is so foundational and how it affects
Yeah.
us?
Well, so I think there's a couple of different things that I think are important for people to kind of think through about sleep. So one question that I get asked is, well, a statement that I oftentimes make is, if I help change somebody's sleep, I change their life, right? It affects them at the fundamental foundational level, right? Who they are is honestly determined in a lot of ways based on their sleep, right? And so I've been thinking about this a lot. And I know you like to get on the spiritual side, so let's go there real fast, right? And so I was listening to a podcast with a fellow on there who was talking about a different kind of philosophy. And he said something I thought made a lot of sense. He said that life, the currency of life is time. That makes sense to me, right? So where I spend my time is how I live my life. I'm down with that. Then he said from Buddhism, he said that attention is the currency of time, right? So where I attend is where I spend my time. Where I spend my time is how I lead my life. I'm down with that. That all makes sense to me. My argument would be the currency of attention is sleep, right? And I've got plenty of data to back it up. You cannot attend to anything if you are sleep deprived. Just try it. Like, I'm sure every listener out there has tried it at some point in time in the past, right? You're in school, you didn't get a lot of sleep, you can't attend to the lecture, you're falling asleep in your chair, or you're busy, you're distracted, or you're doing these other things. Short-term attention, long-term attention, all of it really definitely boils down to, from a biological process, you need to be well hydrated, you need to be able to breathe, and you need to be able to sleep. Hence my book, Sleep, Drink, Breathe, which kind of falls into that category. So, why is sleep so foundational for us? I think it's the foundation of and I think it affects everything that moves forward in terms of what we consider to be our life, right? Time, attention, sleep. So I think that's one answer to the question of, Why is this so foundational? But the truth of the matter is, sleep affects every organ system and every disease state. Literally, everything you do better with a good night's sleep. And I don't think people realize that because they're exhausted. They're in a stressed out world. They're like, this is normal. I've got 3 kids. I'm exhausted. I'm working. I'm homing. I'm doing all these other things. And shouldn't I just be exhausted, Michael? Like, isn't that kind of the way? No. The answer is no. You shouldn't have to be. All of these things can be accomplished and you still getting a good night's sleep. Where people, I think, have the biggest failure is they don't realize one important thing. Well, 2 important things. Number 1, sleep is flexible. Okay. So when somebody comes to me and says, Michael, I got to get 8 hours. Nah, that's not true. That's just not true. You don't have to get 8 hours. In fact, we look at a range of hours for sleep. We'd say people should get somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. 8 hours is not what's recommended. Also, remember, sleep is not a quantity game. Sleep's a quality game. Okay. And so the more quality sleep that you get, I don't think I care about quantity as much. Now, there is a lower level limit, right? You don't want to get less than 5.5 to 6 hours because at that point, your driving skills are off, your reaction time is off, all of those things become off. And that has major safety concerns like driving a car or what have you. But sleep is flexible. You don't have to get the exact same amount of sleep every night. However, you do want sleep to be consistent, okay? And that's where the difference falls into play. It can be flexible, but it needs to be somewhat consistent. So what do I mean by that? Well, if everybody only gets one tip from me for this entire podcast, here it is. Wake up at the same time 7 days a week. Wake up. Notice I didn't say go to bed. I did not say go to bed. I said wake up at the same time 7 days a week. Let me explain the biology as to why that's important, and then you'll understand why I think sleep needs to be consistent. So when you wake up in the morning, sunlight hits your eyeball, and you have a special cell in your eye called a melanopsin cell. And this sends a signal to the back of your brain to tell the melatonin faucet in your head to turn off. Okay, so light hits my eye, melatonin turns off. However, sets a timer for approximately 14 hours later. It's called the melatonin phase response curve. Fancy name for timer, right? And so what happens is if you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 14 hours later is 8 p.m. at night. Takes about an hour and a half for it to get up and in to your brain, right? Start making you feel tired. Then you're going to get sleepy around 9:30, go to bed around 10 o'clock. Okay. That's kind of normal. However, if Saturday shows up and you decide, I didn't get a lot of sleep this week. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sleep in by 2 hours on Saturday. So I'm not going to get up at 6. I'm going to get up at 8, right? Here's what happens. While that sounds like a great idea, number 1, your body still probably wakes up at 6. You look over at the clock. Oh, it's Saturday. I'm going to go back to sleep. Number 2, when you wake up from that 2-hour nap, as it were, you don't usually feel very good. In fact, you don't usually feel refreshed. You actually feel like sleeping more. Most of my patients tell me this, but I would argue that the most important factor is that melatonin changes at night, right? So when you wake up at 8 instead of 6, that means melatonin doesn't kick off at night until 10, takes an hour and a half to get up and in. And so your body, the chemical that your body makes to help you fall asleep changes with the timing of your awakening in the morning. Therefore, the single best thing that you could do is set an alarm every single day for the exact same time to wake up, or within 10 or 15 minutes is probably a reasonable amount. But that is arguably the thing that nobody realizes. So people tell me all the time, oh, well, Michael, I went to bed at 10 o'clock, so I woke up at 6, so I got 8 hours. Okay, that's fine. Oh, Michael, I stayed up until midnight, so then I slept in until 8. That's a bad idea. Okay. Because what happens is you stay up late on Friday night, sleep in on Saturday. Stay up late on Saturday, sleep in on Sunday. Guess what happens? Mondays suck. And the reason Mondays suck is because you're experiencing something called social jet lag, which means your entire circadian rhythm, even after 1 to 2 days, shifts. Again, sleep loves consistency. So the more consistently you can wake up on time in the morning, the more that your internal biological clock will stay running appropriately allowing you to sleep at night. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm over here going, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Turn off the light, go to sleep, sleep all the way through till 6 AM.
That's a whole different ball game. We can talk
I
about that
know,
too.
I know. So, we have to go to that direction because I don't know anybody in my family that sleeps like that and wakes and actually feels refreshed the next day.
Great. So let's talk about it. So there's a reason. It's because they're irregular in their consistency. So, one of the things that I can tell you as an actively practicing sleep specialist is every single one of my patients, everyone does this, and they all complain about it every time. And within 3 weeks, they all thank me for it because their body wakes them up and makes them go to bed at times in particular. The reason that this is something that sounds foreign to you is because you have an irregular sleep schedule. It may take you a little while to fall asleep, or you fall asleep quickly, but somewhere between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and you can't fall back to sleep. And then you say to yourself, oh, well, I had an hour or 2 hours in the middle of the night. I should never get up at my normal wake up time. That would be 100% incorrect. You absolutely should wake up at your normal wake up time. As long as you got at least 5.5 hours of sleep, I don't think I care. Let me explain why. By keeping your wake up time anchored, your entire body, it takes about 3 weeks, your entire body starts to understand when it's supposed to sleep, and it will sleep that way. You just have to give it the opportunity to do so. Is it okay that you only got 6 hours of sleep one night? Yes, because as I said in point number one, sleep is flexible.
Ah. So, what about though as we age? Because when I was a teenager, I slept more, I could sleep
You
longer
had
in
a
the
different
day.
brain,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
It wasn't at the same age brain as you have now, I'm
right.
assuming, right?
Mhm.
Unless you had a brain transplant, which nobody can have just yet. I mean, give it some time. Maybe we will one day. Um, Sleep is not the same as you age. You've got different factors on you. You've got different habits. You've got different schedules. You've got all these different things. I would say a lot of people turn to me and they say, "Oh, I wish I could sleep like I was a teenager again." Good luck. Like that's just it's just dumb. Like it's just not going to work that way. I wish I could lift weights like I was a teenager again. That's what you're telling me, right? That's great, but it doesn't. Your body doesn't work that way, right? Enough time, enough energy, enough stress, enough medical complications, medications, all these different things have an effect on your body over time. Now, if you're wondering about this, well, he says go to bed at the same time or wake up at the same time. What about going to bed? I would actually argue you should go to bed later, not earlier. So this is another common problem that I hear from my patients who are over age 50 is they say, well, I was up for 2 hours in the middle of the night, Michael. I'm going to bed early tonight so I can catch up on the sleep that I missed. Wrong. That's not how sleep works. Okay. Sleep is a lot like a baseball game, right? So you've been to baseball games before, right? Professional bowling, right? So I go to baseball. I love baseball. It's one of my favorite sports, right? If you go to a baseball game, let's say the game starts at 7 o'clock at night, right? If you show up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you're not going to see a baseball game, right? You might see batting practice, right? You might get to meet a couple players. You might get a hot dog, right? Or whatever you like. But the game's not starting, right? Game starts at 7, right? Now, if you show up at the game at 9, did they hold the game for you? No, they didn't, right? Sleep is like a baseball game, okay? It happens when your body is ready for it to happen. The easiest way to influence it is to wake up at the same time every day. And that will, over the course of time, force you to actually metric yourself and go to bed at roughly the same time every night. I'm not here to tell you when to go to bed because lots of stuff happens in the evening. But what I am here to tell you is lower level limit is 5.5 hours. So if you normally get up at 6 and you go to bed at 12:30, get up at 6. But if you go to bed at 2:30, I don't want you getting up at 6 because then you only got 3.5 hours of sleep, and that's dangerous.
Well, that makes sense, but I'm an early bird or whatever
You're
we
what I would call a lion.
a lion. I
I
like
know. Doesn't that
lion
sound better
better
than an
than
early bird?
yes, yes. Okay, so count me into that. But what if, we had night owls, so what's that?
hmm So that's genetic. So this is the thing that I'm actually the most famous for. I wrote a book all about these things called chronotypes. So a chronotype is your genetic predetermined sleep schedule. So if anybody out there goes to chronoquiz.com, and we'll put that in the show notes, you can learn almost immediately what time you should go to bed and what time you should wake up, because I figured it out for you, because it's based on all the research that's out there. But to be clear, you don't get to choose. You don't get to say, I want to be an early bird and I want to be a night owl. It doesn't work that way. I can actually, if I can look on your human genome, if you did 23andMe or ancestry.com, I can walk in there and I can say, look on the PER3 area, look at this particular allele, and it will tell me if you're an early bird or a night owl. And then from there, I can tell you exactly what time you should go to bed and wake up.
If we go take the quiz, then we find that out.
Yeah.
And then you said we can't switch it. So
no, you can't. But it changes over time. Because you're sitting here thinking, well, wait a second. When I was younger, I liked to stay up late and sleep late. And now that I'm a little bit older, I like to go to bed earlier and wake up earlier. Michael, you told me that it doesn't switch. It changes over time. In fact, you go through all of the chronotypes throughout your lifestyle. So think about it like this. When you were a baby, 1, 2 years old, you were an early bird. You went to bed really early. You woke up really early, right? Whether your mom or dad liked it or not. Then you ended up in middle school. Maybe you were 3 years old to, let's say, 6 or 7 years old. Then you were in the middle, what we used to call a hummingbird. I call them bears. And you went to bed around 7:30. You woke up around 7:30. Life was great. Then adolescence hit. You didn't want to go to bed at 7:30. You wanted to go to bed at midnight, right? And you wanted to sleep until 2 o'clock the next day, right? That was adolescence. That's where you're a night owl, or what I call a wolf. Okay, so lion, bear, wolf, right? Then you hit adulthood, and at about 24, 25, your chronotype has a tendency to set for about 30 years. And then at around 50, 55, it has a tendency to go backwards, right? So I don't know, Andrea, if your mom is still alive, but if you turn to her or your dad and you said, hey, you want to go to dinner tonight, what time would they say? They'd say 4:30, 5 o'clock, right? Because they're moving backwards in their chronotype. So this is a moving target. It does have a level of stability when we hit adulthood until we hit about 50, 55 or so, but it's definitely genetic. All signs point to that. There are hundreds, not 100, hundreds of studies pointing to these effects.
That's really incredible. So a lot of people I know, though, they wake up in the middle of the night. And you mentioned it a couple of times, but if I start thinking about
monkey mind.
Yes, if I start my big thing is I'm a busy person. I have a lot going on, and I like what I do. So if I think though about what I have the next day, 99% I'm a goner.
Yep.
I end up having to get up, and it may be 4 a.m., you know. So what can we do to help ourselves not get up at that time?
So there's a bunch of different things. So I'll also give you a link to this video. So the most popular video I've ever done on my YouTube channel, it answers this exact question, which is, I fall asleep fine. What happens if I wake up between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning and I have a hard time falling back to sleep? So let's talk about the biology as to why. Why do you wake up between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning? So it's actually quite simple. So your core body temperature rises till about 10:30 and hits a peak. Then it drops. That drop is a signal to your brain to release melatonin. Remember, we've talked about this melatonin before. Then your core body temperature continues to drop while you're sleeping. At some point in time, it has to heat your body up. Otherwise, you go hypothermic and you die. Guess what time that is?
Between 1 and 3.
You got it. Between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Every single human, Andrea, on Earth wakes up between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning. However, most people don't even realize it. They burp, they fart, they roll over, and they go back to sleep. Okay. You, however, have the distinct ability, for whatever reason, to sometimes stay awake. So let's talk about that situation in particular. So number one, this is not your fault. What you do after this is your fault, but waking up is not your fault. Again, it's a biological process. So step number one is don't go pee. Yep, you heard it here. Don't go pee. Now, you're probably sitting here saying, there's no way. What if I have to pee, Michael? I want to be clear. If you really have to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. But most people, they wake up between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning and they say, I'm up, I might as well go pee. That is a terrible idea. Let me explain why. There are 3 things that control your sleep. Well, 4. We've already talked about your schedule. That's the 4th. The other 3 are heart rate, core body temperature, and anxiety. Those are the 3 big factors. Okay. Guess what happens to your heart rate when you go from a lying position to a seated position to a standing position? You walk across the room.
Up.
That's right. It goes up. You need a heart rate of 60 or below to enter into a state of unconsciousness. So getting up to go pee when you really don't have to is a really bad idea. So once again, don't go pee. I want to be clear. If you really got to go to the bathroom, please go to the bathroom. Put some night lights along the way so that you don't stub your toe or bang into anything. And do not turn on the light in the bathroom. If you do, you just told your brain it's morning, it stops producing melatonin. Now you have 2 problems, not 1. So again, strategically place night lights along the way. If you can, stop fluids 90 minutes before bed. Double check with your doctor if you're diabetic. That's not a good idea, but if you're not diabetic, you probably can do it. Don't go pee. Number 2, don't look at the clock. This is what every single human does. They grab their phone and they head to the can. That's what almost everybody does, okay? Why is that a bad idea? Because as soon as you pick up your phone, it reads the time across your phone. Then you instantly do the mental math, whether you want to or not, and you say, shit, it's 3:30 and I've got to get up at 6. Sleep, sleep, sleep. And you try to force your brain to sleep. Andrea, in the history of time, no one on earth has ever forced themselves to sleep without anesthesia. Okay. It just doesn't work that way. Why? Because your heart rate's going in the wrong direction, right? Think about it. When you're telling yourself to sleep, what's happening? Your heart rate is increasing. It's not decreasing, right? Also, by the way, your core body temperature is increasing. If you get up and walk around, your core body temperature changes, right? As you get anxious, guess what? Your core body temperature changes, right? Don't look at the clock. It doesn't matter. Honestly, what good is that information going to do you, right? You're curious. Who cares? If it's still dark, go back to sleep. If you have an alarm set, you're fine. It doesn't matter. If you're worried about it, set your alarm at the beginning of the night and don't look at the clock. It's a terrible habit. It messes with every single thing that you don't want to mess with, and it's easily preventable. I actually have a sleeve that I put my phone into and plug my phone into. So even if I could look at it and I look over at my phone, I can't see it. Put a book over your phone, put it in a t-shirt, do whatever it is you need to do, but don't look at your phone. You really don't need to. Like, honestly, like you really don't need to.
Yeah, I'm really rethinking that. I don't actually even take my phone in my bedroom,
That's
but
even better.
I have a clock, a digital clock.
Cover it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that
You don't need it.
because yeah,
You really don't need to know what time it is. If you look out the window and it's still dark, go back to bed.
yes.
Okay.
I'm actually gonna do that for real.
All right. Step number 3 is, okay, Michael, I didn't go pee and I didn't look at my phone. I'm still awake. What do I do? Okay. So what I would want you to do is do something called 4-7-8 breathing. This is my favorite breathing technique. It's developed by a guy by the name of Dr. Andrew Weil, Harvard-trained naturalist, super smart guy. Used it in the military to help them lower their heart rate. Okay. Remember, we need a heart rate of 60 or below to enter into a state of unconsciousness. We're now awake. We're upset. Our heart rate is not at 60 or below. So what is 4-7-8 breathing? By the way, this is not box breathing. Box breathing does not work here. Don't try box breathing. I don't want to hear about your box breathing. Everybody says, oh, I do box breathing, Michael. I count 4, I hold for 4, I push for 4. It doesn't work. 4-7-8 breathing does, and I'll explain why. 4-7-8 breathing, slowly breathe in through the nose for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, slowly push out through the mouth for a count of 8. That's what 4-7-8 breathing is. Now, a couple of modifications that you're going to use to help make this even better for you. The very first one is picture in your mind's eye the number. So when you're pulling in for 4, picture a 4, then a 3, then a 2, then a 1. right? Then when you're holding for 7, count 7, then 6, then 5, then 4, all the way down. And then when you're pushing for 8, then breathe in and count 1, 2, 3, or out rather, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But you want to see the number in your head. This distracts you from thinking about your problems, because the biggest thing you're doing, which you already said, was if I start thinking about what I'm supposed to do tomorrow, I'm gone. This prevents that very thing from happening. But you must, let me repeat myself, must picture the number in your brain, okay? And it's not a hard pull in and it's not a hard push out. It's very gentle, okay? So other caveat is you need 20 cycles of 4-7-8 breathing for your heart rate to drop to about 60 to allow the natural sleep process to come in and take over. Here's the problem. I get pissed off because I miscount or I can't remember where I am. So I'm going to teach you the way to figure that out. Take your hands and make very light fists and keep them down by your side. And when you do 1, 4, 7, 8, stick out a finger. Another 4, 7, 8, stick out a finger. Before you know it, you get to 10, then you wrap them back, and now you've done 20 and you haven't lost count. This does 2 things. Number 1, it keeps you on task, which lowers your anxiety, but it makes you use your dexterity. It makes you use your fingers. So now you are breathing, you are thinking about the number, and you are using, there's no way for you to think about anything else when you're doing this. And if you follow the breathing pattern, it is specifically designed to lower your heart rate. Last caveat for 4-7-8 breathing is when I first tried it, I couldn't do it. I couldn't hold for 7 and I couldn't push for 8. So you can modify it. Do 4-5-6 breathing for 2 weeks, then move to 4-6-7 breathing, then do 4-7-8 breathing. But it needs to be in that order. The draw in is the shortest time. You must hold for at least 1 second longer than the draw in, and you should push for at least 1 second longer than the hold. That is how this whole process works, but it works really, really well. So you haven't looked at the clock, you haven't gone to pee, you're awake, you do 4-7-8 breathing, 20 cycles or so, and honestly, you should be out like a light. Now, let's be fair, not everybody is. That's okay, but now you're very relaxed. You have a much better chance of the sleep process coming in. Let me explain a few other pieces of data to you that are important. Number 1, lying there in a savasana or a yoga nidra, guess what? That's rejuvenative. It's not as good as sleep, but it's still pretty damn good. If you do that for an hour, that's worth 20 minutes of sleep. So even if you never fall back asleep, but you lie there in savasana, believe it or not, that's helpful. So don't get frustrated. This is what happens to people is they sit there and say, oh, I'm getting so upset. This is so frustrating. No. Chill, relax. You can still get some level of rejuvenation. Now, I want to be super clear. If you do find yourself getting upset, get out of bed. The last thing you need to be is in bed pissed off. It just doesn't help, right? Because your heart rate goes up, your temperature goes up, your anxiety goes up. Like all 3 things that you need are out the window. If you do need to get up before you go to bed, create an area. Find a chair that's super comfortable, have a book already out with a little table lamp so that you know this is the place I go. I don't want you wandering around your house, trying to find a place, trying to find a book, clicking on the television. None of that is helpful, okay? Predetermined area in the home waiting for you. By the way, 90% of the time, you'll never need it. You might need it the first few times. After that, it'll actually become almost irrelevant. Okay, so we've done our 4-7-8 breathing. We've been lying there relaxing. We're not getting upset, so we don't need to go to our special place. Michael, is there anything else that I need to do? There's one more thing. Stay positive. Now, you might say to me, oh boy, California doctor, now he's getting all woo-woo into the positivity of it all. But you did say that this is definitely the crowd to be able to do a little woo-woo and a little positivity. So I'm going to do it. Here's the thing. When you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's almost never for a good reason. Think about it. Last time you woke, nobody came in your room at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, happy birthday, or you got a raise, or, any of these joyful things. So your brain is programmed to be negative in the middle of the night. It's a threat, right? I've been in this unbelievably soft, great space. I've been sleeping. Things have been going well. My temperature started to increase. Now I woke up. What is going on? You're going to be negative. I learned a long time ago, it's almost impossible to stop your first thought, but it's very easy to stop your second. So when you wake up and you say, damn it, I'm awake again. Okay, hold on a second. I was listening to this really awesome podcast with this crazy sleep doctor, and here are a couple of things. Here's a plan. Here's a protocol that he told me about that I can do. I'm going to stay positive. Once again, allowing the natural sleep process to take over. Because here's the thing. It's not like this hasn't happened a million times before. Okay. It's not like your head popped off the last time this occurred. It's not like you cursed out your boss. You ended up in a divorce. None of these terrible things that you think are going to happen in your head because your brain is programmed to be negative at night happen. Right. So relax. Okay. I tell people all the time, sleep is a lot like love. The less you look for it, the more it shows up. That's the truth.
Nice. Yeah. When you were saying that about the brain being negative at night, I was thinking earlier before we got on how everything seems much scarier at night, doesn't it? And like the problems are so much bigger, And then you wake up and then the sun comes up and it's like, whoa, why was I so worried about that?
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. But remember, our brain is programmed that way simply because when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's been hundreds and hundreds of years of bad stuff, right? That's in your genetics. Like as human beings, like that stuff moves forward with us. And so we can't help it, but we can help our second thought, which is, okay, I learned that if I just relax and allow myself to stay calm, there's a good likelihood I can fall back asleep. And even if I don't, I can go to that other place, or I can just chill here, right? Do my savasana, relax. It's not going to kill me. Yeah, I might be a little tired, but I'll be okay, right? Remind yourself that you're going to be okay, right? I promise you, your head's not going to pop off.
All right. What about something we hear a lot about? And that is a ritual or a wind down period before we go to bed.
I love wind down periods, and I like rituals for people, especially for people who are not the best sleepers. Rituals can be very, very important. One of the things I do is I created this idea. I call it the power down hour. So let's say you're going to bed at 11. Set an alarm on your phone, or better yet, in your bedroom that you really have to go in there to hear, for 10 o'clock. So 1 hour before lights out. Okay. Then take that 1 hour and chop it up into 3 20-minute segments. 20 minutes for just stuff you got to do. So in our house, it used to be getting kids' backpacks together, finding shoes, sports equipment, making lunches for the next day, all the things that will lower your stress level in the morning time. That is probably the 20 minutes you should dedicate. That I like to have my clothes laid out in the morning so I know what I'm going to be wearing the next day, stuff like that. Just make your life simpler. 20 minutes for hygiene. By the way, for the ladies out there who are listening to this, here's a little trick that I learned a while ago, which is take your makeup off earlier in the night. Here's one of the problems. If you wait until, 20 minutes before bed, you're in the brightest light of the day, right? You're sitting in front of your makeup mirror, which has got all those lights around it, and you're, getting all the stuff off your face. I know this because I do a lot of television work, and so I wear makeup on occasion, and I learned, because sometimes I would just leave it on because I was like, who cares, whatever. And then at the end of the day, I'm wiping it all off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting so much light at night. So 20 minutes for hygiene. Hopefully you removed your makeup earlier. By the way, this is an awesome time to do a hot bath or a warm shower or something like that. And then 20 minutes for some form of meditation, relaxation, prayer. I don't care what gets you there. If you want to watch an old episode of Seinfeld, go for it, okay? I'm literally the only sleep doctor in the universe that says it's okay to fall asleep with the television on. Yes, you heard it here. It's okay to fall asleep with the television on. Here's the thing. My wife falls asleep every single night with the TV on and 2 dogs in the bed, our French bulldogs. Okay, every night. This is what goes on in our house. Okay, I'm the sleep doctor, Andrea. Okay, This is what happens in my house every single night. All right. So I studied her to understand, why is she doing this? And what I discovered is she's not even watching. She's listening out of like the corner of her ear. It's just enough to prevent her from having monkey mind, which is what we were talking about earlier. Now, would she be better off doing 4-7-8 breathing? Of course she would. All right. You try to teach your partner how to do something before bed that you're an expert in, and you see how well that goes for you. Okay. I'm just saying, nothing against my wife. She's an amazing person, married 26 years. However, I wasn't able to teach her how to do that, but she falls asleep with the TV on. There's a timer built into the television. Like literally every television on earth has one of these right now. If you don't know it, ask your kid or your grandkid to show it. I had to have my son show it to me. But once I figured it out, I was like, click, 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 boom, TV pops off and we're good to go. So whatever you need in that last 20 minutes, do it. But have a routine. And by the way, take the routine on you with you on the road. So I travel a ton. So I have a power down hour. Sometimes it's a half an hour because I might have gotten pushed up against my schedule because let's say I'm out late with clients or been to meetings or at the lecture hall or what have you. But try to get yourself done in that way. Also, equipment matters. So what do I mean by that? So eye shades, earplugs, blackout curtains, sheets, mattress, pillow, all of these things absolutely positively have an effect. There's no question about it. The data is very, very clear. So be thoughtful about your sleep environment, right? It needs to be dark, it needs to be quiet, it needs to be cool. That's a given. Those are table stakes, right? We know we've got to have those three on there, but how you do that can really make a big effect, right? Some people can't sleep with earplugs, and so that's not a good idea for them. They may need a sound machine. Some people have a bed partner who wakes up an hour and a half earlier than they do, and that person's alarm is driving them crazy. Get a vibratory alarm that just goes into their pillow. They make those, right? I know there's all kinds of crazy stuff. My wife likes to sleep with the television on. I have eye shades, right? Again, there's very few problems out there that you can't overcome with some accoutrement, some gadget, gizmo, something that can be potentially helpful to you. But a lot of them are obvious. The bigger one that I find a lot of my female patients argue about with their spouses is temperature. Temperature is a biggie, especially for women when they hit a particular age. I'm 58, so I have a woman in my life who's reaching that age where there's a lot of different hormonal changes, which cause these hot flashes in the middle of the evening. And so that's super duper disruptive as well. So knowing and understanding that becomes an important factor. Like, what temperature do I keep the room? Do I have any one of these? There are new, I guess you would call them toppers that you can put underneath your sheets that can cool you from beneath or warm you from beneath versus outside of your covers. So there's a lot of different possible things out there. There's even now headphones that are designed to be worn while you're sleeping, right? So not your AirPods. Those are not designed to be worn while you're sleeping. They can actually damage the auricular canal. These are ones that are built specifically for that. And they even monitor your sleep while I'll put a link to all of these products in the show notes. So that way people can find the products if they're looking. The cooling thing and the ear thing. Those are, I use both of them myself. I love them. So you would be surprised at what's out there that can be very, very valuable. But having a pre-bed routine and then making sure that environment is one that is conducive to sleep for you and your partner, not the general rules that everybody else has to follow, but what works for you and your partner, that becomes key. Because what you don't want is getting into a battle royale every night with your partner saying, you want it too hot, I want it cold, you got the TV on. Like, figure it out. Like, it's not that hard.
Absolutely. I recently got a sleep mask,
I love them.
and yeah, this one is really nice, and it blocks
Oh, yeah.
everything out. And I'm actually putting this in an email right now to send
Mhm.
to all the people on my list, because
Mhm.
what it does, it gives me a signal as well that the world is out there and
That's
that
right.
I am now entering my inner world. And it has really helped me, I have to say. So when I find stuff, I like to share it. So I'm glad you'll give us the links.
A couple of thoughts on sleep masks is You want one that's a little bit raised off of your face, and I'll explain why. So when you wear a sleep mask, light can come in through the creases on the side of your nose, and that can be unbelievably annoying. So you want something that's a little bit raised, that has a pad that covers this area that's a little bit on the flexible side. Also, you want it to be slightly raised, because I can't stand it when my eyelashes rub against the eye mask. That makes me insane. So I have one that's got these little eye pockets, and you can put them right here, and it's actually movable on the mask. It's called a Manta mask. It's super. Is that the one you got?
Yeah. Yes.
I love the Manta mask. I think they, and by the way, those little pockets, they've got ones that you can heat or cool. So as an example, if you have a headache or something like that, it can be super duper helpful there. So I definitely recommend eye masks for sure. I'm glad to hear that you got the Manta. I really like that brand. They do a good job.
Yeah, I've been really happy with it, and I do like you can move those little eye cups, and
Right? Aren't
so
those the best?
really, yeah, zero it right in for yourself. So, and having that level of individuality, it makes it that much more special for me. So
And
I
here's
I
the other thing that's great about that is you take your eye mask with you when you travel. So you don't have to now worry about, okay, is there a window? Do I have to close the shades? Or the blackout shade? Are they really closed? Are they not really closed? Like, now you've got an eye mask, problem solved.
oh right, because it blacks it out. Yeah, there's nothing there. So, well, I'm excited because I get to try some of these neat things, but yeah, I'm wondering too, though. Now, you mentioned meditation and shavasana when we're
Uh-huh.
asleep.
Yeah.
Exercise, I hear exercise in the day is
Mm-hmm.
great to help you sleep at night. And that makes sense because you're kind of tiring yourself out, you're expending energy, and then the balance would be rest.
But,
Yes?
yes, but there's one caveat, which
Okay.
is if you exercise too close to bedtime, you increase your core body temperature and makes it hard to fall asleep. So I generally have a rule, which is don't exercise within 4 hours of bedtime, especially if it's cardio, because what happens, people don't realize it, but even if you finished, let's say you went on a 3 mile run, even if you got back from your 3 mile run, believe it or not, it takes your body almost 2 hours for it to actually, even though you feel cool and maybe you go into a cold plunge or you take a cool shower and you think, oh, that'll do the trick, really doesn't. We're talking about core body temperature. We're not talking about the external temperature that's like on your fingertips and skin and things like that. We're talking in your core. That's the temperature that has to drop in order for melatonin to be released. So you really don't want to exercise too close to bedtime. But you did hit on one of the most important ways to improve sleep quality is with daily exercise. So you nailed it on that one. 20 to 25 minutes, some kind of cardio is usually the best way to do it. Now, to be clear, you ain't going to run a marathon or even 5 miles, right? Walking is perfect. So, as an example, if you walk for 25 minutes after dinner, which by the way is really good for your digestion, you kind of hit both of them at the same time. Walk for 25, 30 minutes with your partner, take your dog, walk to the end of the block, grab the newspaper, whatever it is, but do it within, stop within 4 hours of bedtime. And I think you'll probably be in good shape.
Yeah. And then what if we want to meditate and that kind of thing? Does that interfere with our sleep? Does it help our sleep?
So if you're a true meditator, it might. Okay. So let's be thoughtful about this for half a second. So a lot of times when I come on podcasts, people think of meditation as a way to make people fall asleep. Nothing could be further from the truth. That is not how meditation was designed, nor what meditation is for. Meditation is for bringing people present. That is what meditation is for. And so I do have a group of people who are really good meditators. And quite frankly, if they meditate too close to bedtime, they're too present to fall asleep. Yeah. And here's something even more interesting that I'm glad you brought up is I have a special group of patients that do a specific kind of meditation called TM, transcendental meditation. I can't get my TM patients to sleep longer than 4.5 hours a night. I know,
Really?
it's unbelievable. I've got 4 of them, and they different people, different type, like came into my practice at different times, not all working in the same meditation group. None of them can I get them to sleep longer than 4.5 hours. And here's what I think is going on. I think transcendental meditation is such a deep, deep highly structured form of meditation, I think it does something that's helpful for sleep. Um, like I'm not, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying it replaces sleep. I'm saying it does something. We don't know exactly what yet, but my serious meditators don't need as much sleep.
That is pretty interesting. Yeah, because I actually was wondering that if I meditate during the day, does that make me not sleep at night? And so that's really
If you do
something.
TM, and most of my TMers do it at least twice a day, um, yeah, it might actually do that.
Hmm, that is something. Okay, well, hmm, what about other things that happen at night? Like Mm, lucid dreaming, sensing a presence, because, I've actually had that myself, I will say. Or what about astral travel? Like your consciousness really, it's like it goes somewhere else. From a sleep science perspective, what do you say
So,
about that?
yep, I will say that the data is limited, but it's not that it shouldn't be believed. I think there's something there. I don't think we have the instrumentation to be able to measure what's going on there, if I'm super duper honest. But there's just too many people that tell me, oh my gosh, in my dream world, I'm doing this, that, and the other. Now, I have spent, and I think you and I had this discussion before, I have spent a good bit of time the last 2 years specifically focusing in on dreams and dreaming in my clinical practice to learn more about how to help people with nightmares, right? So, dreams are what I call emotional metabolism, right? And so the dreaming process is where you're moving information from your short term memory to your long term memory, right? So you get data in through your eyes, through your ears, through your nose, and your mouth. You want to retain that data, right? So your brain uses a particular phase of sleep called REM sleep, which, by the way, is the sleep that you dream the most in. You dream in every stage of sleep, but REM seems to be the most. And it's the most creative, fantastical types of dreams. But this is where you get through your emotions. So, as an example, if you had a particularly emotionally difficult day, you might have a little bit more REM sleep, right? If you had a particularly joyful day, you might have a little bit more REM sleep. Again, emotional metabolism. Now, the question becomes, well, can I move off into another universe? Can I meet up with a deceased relative? What are all these things that are out there that are possibilities? So the answer is yes. These are all possibilities. No, none of them have been well studied. Lucid dreaming is probably the one caveat here. There's been quite a bit of study around lucid dreaming. I've done some research work in the lucid dreaming field, and I am a lucid dreamer, so I can speak to that. Here's what I can tell you: is lucid dreaming is fun. You get to do a lot of cool stuff inside of a lucid dream, and the laws of physics are gone. So you can fly, you can race a car, you can meet up with a deceased relative. Like there's all kinds of interesting things that you can kind of do there. And by the way, that is a skill set. That is something that can be taught. You don't have to, like, I happen to have been born with it. I've been lucid dreaming since I was a very young boy. But you can take a weekend course and learn how to lucid dream. Like it's not as hard as you might imagine. Believe it or not, there's even some supplements that you can take that can be helpful with lucid dreaming. But generally speaking, unfortunately, we don't have really any great data that I'm aware of on the moving into a different astral plane and moving off into the cosmos and consciousness and things like that. However, I would end the conversation with one thing, which is I don't think you can truly understand consciousness without understanding unconsciousness,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to be thoughtful in that area and explore and discover and try to measure so that way we can tell other people potentially how to get there.
Yeah, because that's a really good point too about the measurement. How do you really measure things?
Right. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to measure dreams. It's very difficult to measure those types of experiences and really know and understand what's going on there, at least objectively. Now, you can ask somebody, but that's a subjective, component where they say, "Oh, I was here, and I was hanging out with, I don't know, some Albert Einstein, and we were having a good conversation." Like, I don't know if you're really hanging out with Albert Einstein or not. Like, I have no way of proving that. Sounds like you did. I mean, it sounds like you had a good time. It sounds like you learned a few things. Like, let's go with that.
Yeah, it's fun to kind of think about and to talk to people about their experiences.
There's
I
many people who've had this experience, but most people won't talk about it because as soon as you ask them about it, they're concerned that you think they're crazy.
Oh, well, that's okay. We do that really well around here. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I think what I'd like to ask you about then is you said there's a supplement to help with lucid dreaming. A lot of people are interested in supplements for sleep and that, but what's the lucid dreaming one?
So there is a supplement that's been used for lucid dreaming. It's called galantamine. We'll put it in the show notes as well. Need to be thoughtful. You can't just grab it, take a few pills, and go to bed. That's not how it works. You need to read up on it and use it in the right protocols. But let's talk about supplements in general, because I think that's an important area of discussion for your audience. So I have a very strong feelings about supplementation. So my strong feelings are very simple. Go do blood work. Like, I'm so sick and tired of people coming up to me and saying, Michael, what's the best supplement for sleep? I don't know for you. I want to see what you're deficient in first. Because here's the thing, when you think about supplements, the entire reason that supplements were created was because they're supposed to supplement your diet, right? So if you're not getting enough vitamin D or magnesium or iron, that's when you supplement with those things. But if you are, then you don't need to. Okay. So step number one is to go do blood work and see what your deficiencies are first. By the way, blood work does deficiencies on vitamins and minerals. So nobody out there is deficient in ashwagandha. Okay. It just doesn't work that way. All right. But you might be deficient in vitamin D, magnesium, iron, melatonin, those type of things. So everybody should go do blood work first, then look for deficiencies, then fix your deficiencies first. Andrea, I can't count the number of patients. I would honestly tell you somewhere between 20 and 25% of across the board, my patients, first thing we do is I tell them, look, go ask your doctor, go do blood work, let's fix your deficiencies. 25% of the time, that fixes the problem right there. It's amazing. Vitamin D, magnesium, iron, melatonin. Those are the big ones that you don't want to be deficient in. I want to do a quick double tap on melatonin because that's one of the ones that lots and lots of people take and they have no idea if they're deficient in or not deficient in. So let's do a quick double tap on melatonin. Melatonin is not a sleep initiator. Melatonin is a sleep regulator. Let me explain. Melatonin is not the thing in your brain that makes you feel sleepy. That's called adenosine. Melatonin is the thing that tells your brain it's bedtime, which is why there's only 4 reasons, maybe 3, why you should use melatonin. Jet lag, shift work, if you have a melatonin deficiency, and then there are actually some disorders. ADD has got an indication for melatonin, as does something called REM behavior disorder, which is where you act out your dreams. So those are the only times that I ever recommend melatonin to people. So that's number one, is most people are not using this appropriately. It is not a thing that makes you fall asleep. It is a thing that tells your brain it's bedtime. Those are 2 different things. Let me explain to you how I know this. Have you ever been in the situation where you went outside, you worked in the garden really hard, you had a good physical day, you're like, I'm going to get in bed early. I'm going to get in bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock because I'm so tired. And then what happens? You lie there and you stare at the ceiling because you can't fall asleep. You're tired, but it's not your bedtime yet. Melatonin determines your bedtime. Okay. That is why you only take it when you need your bedtime changed, like with shift work or like with jet lag, or if you have a melatonin deficiency, right? Now, why don't I want people to take melatonin just regularly? Well, there's a few different reasons. The biggest one is it interacts with other medications. Nobody talks about this. Let me tell you the 4 drug classes that it interacts with regularly. Number 1, birth control. Did you know, by the way, yeah, people will get pregnant if they're taking melatonin and using birth control. I've seen it happen. It's problematic. Okay. Did you know that, by the way, that in Germany, melatonin is used as a contraceptive? Yeah. Yeah. In almost every country outside of the United States, melatonin is by prescription only. It's a hormone. Like, people don't understand. Like, you can't walk down to the CVS and buy testosterone and estrogen, and there's a damn good reason for it, because hormones affect every system in the body, right? So melatonin affects the reproductive system. So that's number 1. By the way, I can't think of anything worse for a young female developing body than to be given melatonin. No child under the age of 18 should take melatonin. None of them. Okay. There's one caveat there, and that's children on the autism spectrum. For some reason, those kids do really well at 5 to 7 milligrams. I don't know why, but there's a lot of documented data for it, which also brings up the point of dosage. Okay. The appropriate dosage is between a half and 1.5 milligrams, which, by the way, is impossible to find. Go to the drugstore. It's in 3 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams. Those are all overdosage formats. Do not take a 3 milligram gummy and cut it in half if that's what you want to. If you're dying to use melatonin because you're going on a trip somewhere, that's the way you want to do it. No, so it affects birth control. Number 2, every antidepressant on the market, every one, any SSRI, any SNRI is affected by melatonin. Number 3, blood pressure medications. Number 4, diabetes medications. I've pretty much covered every medication that probably people out there are on or have been on or know somebody on. And all of them are affected by melatonin because melatonin is a circadian pacemaker. It changes how your body does things. It basically rejiggers the time, the internal clock that you have. That's what melatonin does. Remember, it changes your bedtime. So why wouldn't it have effects on these things? So again, it shouldn't be used in children, but pediatricians all over the place are telling people to use it. This is wrong, okay? Flat out wrong. It interacts with medications. Most people are taking the wrong dosage. Stop. Like, it's just not worth it, right? But people come to me all the time. It's natural, Michael. Why can't I take it if I'm not sleeping? I can assure you, I can get you to sleep better without melatonin. And I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. Now, this does bring up an interesting topic, which is, do people need a pill to sleep? By the way, that's another big problem with giving children melatonin is you just taught them that they needed a pill to sleep, which is really not the habit I think that you want to teach children. But let's talk about adults for a second, and let's talk about prescription meds, because I think that's an important topic as well. Yes, there are people in this universe that need a pill to sleep, and that is okay. There is nothing wrong. If you and your doctor have had the discussion and you have a scenario where a sleeping pill makes sense, I am here to tell you that that is just fine with me. Okay. Look, if you've got paranoid schizophrenia, you get your Ambien. That's just how that works, right? If you have pain, if you have low back pain, God forbid you get into a motor vehicle accident, you slip a disc or something like that, and you need a pill to help you sleep, please take your pill to help you go to sleep, right? But I'm going to argue that most sleeping pills have been overprescribed, at least here in the United States. And I think that's highly problematic. I think a lot of doctors, they write a script, they hand it to you, and they say, come back in 30, 60, 90 days. And the problem is you still have the same problem, right? All it did was mask it or cover it up for a little bit. If you are uncomfortable on your sleep medication, then you should talk with your doctor. By the way, don't ever, ever, ever cold turkey yourself off of sleep meds. Here's what happens. You get what's called a rebound insomnia. You're up for 3 or 4 days. I've had some people end up in the ER because of this. They put them back on a stronger sleeping pill, and then I can never get them off sleeping pills ever again. Okay. So don't be an idiot. Don't think you can do this by yourself. If you and your doctor have gotten you on a pill and it's been several years and you think that you want to come off of it, have a conversation with your doctor. Number one, see if it's appropriate for you to come off it. If it is, ask for what's called a taper schedule, where you slowly reduce the amount. It should take 2 months, not 2 weeks. It should take 2 months. That way you don't have this rebound insomnia that messes you up. Now, there's a third category that we need to talk about just briefly, and that's over-the-counter meds for sleep, like ZQuil, and all the PM medications and things like that. I want to be super duper clear. These are dangerous. Let me repeat myself. These are dangerous. When you look at the data, the main ingredient in most of them is called diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl. And by the way, there is now data to show, and I'll send you the study, that it's a direct pathway to Alzheimer's. Direct. Yeah, straight in, just go right there. You take one of those PMs every single night, you're going to have a problem on your hands. I can assure you of that. So to be clear, this is a natural process. Your body knows how to do this. Like, stop making it so much more difficult for yourself, right? Consistent schedule, specifically consistent wake up time, right? We've talked a lot about that. Figuring out what to do in the middle of the night, that's another one. And then there's two other factors. We've talked about exercise. Two other factors I think are important: caffeine and alcohol, right? So let's talk about them really quickly. Caffeine, stop drinking caffeine by 2 p.m. Just cut it out, okay? Like people say, oh, but Michael, coffee doesn't affect me. Bullshit. If I stick electrodes on your head and you drink a cup of coffee before you go to sleep, I can assure you it is affecting the quality of the sleep that you are getting. It might not affect your quantity because you're so damn tired anyway, but it will absolutely affect the quality of the sleep. It's a stimulant. Like, that's how it works. Like, I'm sorry. Now, are there people with different caffeine sensitivities? There are. Not very many. Like, don't fool yourself in thinking that this is how this works for you, because it doesn't. And by the way, if you can't stop coffee at 2 p.m., you have a problem. Okay? You have a problem. Number two, alcohol. There's a really big difference between going to bed and passing out. Okay? Right? Alcohol is the number one sleep aid in the world. More people drink themselves to sleep than any other single substance. Here's why this is a terrible idea. Aside from the fact that it gives you terrible quality sleep, it affects something called the glymphatic system. So the glymphatic system is something that happens during stage 3, 4, or deep sleep. During deep sleep, your brain shrinks. Believe it or not, your brain shrinks. Cerebrospinal fluid comes in and washes out your brain and takes away all these proteins that you don't want building up in your brain. These proteins are called beta amyloid and tau. When beta amyloid and tau are not removed from the brain nightly, they accumulate and they have a tendency to wrap around the nerves. That's called Alzheimer's disease. Okay, did I get everybody's attention now? Okay, stop drinking yourself to sleep. Number one, it gives you terrible quality sleep. Number two, you usually wake up from either sweating or having to pee. And number three, the next day, you feel like crap. Like it's not serving you. It's not help. I get it when you were younger and you wanted to go to concerts or hang out with your friends or go have a few drinks. That's great. Go have a good time. But don't drink before bed, specifically 3 hours before bed. Limit yourself to 2 drinks and you have a much greater likelihood of getting a good night's sleep.
So much information, Dr. Breus. I mean, any one of those things was totally worth the price of admission here.
There you
But
go.
wow, I love the fact that you went to the ZQL thing and the all of that, because just as a person out here who
Just a
doesn't
consumer.
study this stuff, I mean, melatonin, we're told, oh, do that. And it's funny, I had to laugh when you said, well, they say, oh, but it's natural.
Right.
There are a lot of natural things that I
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't eat,
Yeah,
you know.
arsenic, that's
Yeah,
natural. You
I
probably
know,
shouldn't
right?
eat that.
Yeah, so that's really
Right.
not a good argument. But now we are going to have to put all these links in the show notes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say goodbye for now. Thanks, Dr. Breus.
Sweet dreams.
Thank you for tuning in. Keep trusting your truth, keep listening to your inner wisdom, and keep following what resonates. To sign up for the newsletter, leave a review, or connect, visit whatresonatspodcast.com. You'll also find everything linked in the show notes.